Hello, Sales Nation. I'm your host, Will Barron, and welcome to another episode of the Salesman Podcast. I hope you're doing well today. As always, appreciate you tuning into the show. It means a lot to me and the team. Today's show is all about closing those huge deals, and we've got the world's leading expert in this, Tom Searcy. He is an absolute pro, and in fact, after we recorded the podcast, I'm sure he won't mind me sharing this with you, but he actually spent a bit of time with me going through what our goals and aims are and the bigger accounts we could be applying to. And it's one thing to do a podcast and talk about the theory, it's another to get really practical about it all. And he walked the walk or talked the talk, whatever way you want to put it, and he is genuinely a pro. So in this episode, we're talking about how to close those huge deals, and it's something that we've not talked about on the show before, I don't think. And it's all relative, so whether you're in auto sales, B2B, medical devices, whatever it is, there will be a set range of sales that your company usually closes, and there's probably a few big accounts either side of that you've not approached or people in the company haven't gone for in the past for whatever reason. Tom talks to us about and explains why there's huge benefits in going after those accounts, how it's game changing for both you as a salesperson, commissions obviously, but then the residual income, the fact that when you're in a bigger company like that, there's way more opportunities that come up. There's loads of opportunities, and that's what the crux of the matter is, and that's what we really get into. You can find out more about Tom over at huntbigsales.com. And with that, let's jump into today's show. Tom, welcome to the Salesman Podcast.
Good to be here. Thanks so much.
Good stuff. You are more than welcome. And today we're going to talk about the big accounts, landing those, the whale accounts, I guess that you'd call them in context with your book, which we'll come on to towards the end of the show. But yeah, I want to start from the very beginning of this. So why or what are the main advantages of going at these big accounts rather than playing it safe and going for the smaller ones potentially?
I will tell you that early on in my career, I started looking at the amount of time it takes to go after small and mid-sized accounts versus the larger accounts. And sure, it's a little bit shorter, but not that much shorter. And so when you look at the investment it takes versus the bigger accounts, it's just an ROI basis. And secondly, obviously, you land the larger accounts, it's better for you, it's better for your company, usually. And I've got to tell you, nothing tastes better than taking a big deal from one of your competitors. It's a sweet flavor.
Definitely. And we're going to come down this route a little bit later on as well, but I think it's worth touching on it now as you just said that. What is the limit for when we say a big account? Is it contextual in that a small company should really a big deal for them is from a medium company, or should small companies be going after the huge competitors that they might be seen as being scared of competing with and might actively avoid competing with at the moment? Is this just a completely free and open market, and it's just up for whoever has the skills to claim the business? They are the ones that can take it.
That's a great question. I will tell you that you have to size the nature of your whale to what is relevant to your company and to your business. I always used a rule of thumb of the following. Whatever company you're in, or if you're just an individual salesperson, your whale is between 5 to 10 times of your average sized account. So if your account is, say, 10,000, whether it's pounds, euros, or dollars, then obviously your whale would be 50,000 or 100,000. And if your average deal is $1 million, you take that same type of approach. That way, the scale of the deal is within reason for your company. And that's a whale for you, rather than always going after the biggest account, but out in the marketplace, the top 500 in the entire universe, which is well beyond the scope and scale of your company's ability. That if you landed it, you could even deliver on it. Keep it within a reality, but still stretch yourself to your absolute limits.
And just adds a bit of business insight to this as well, because I think this is important and of increasing importance for salespeople. For someone listening to this now, and this would have been me at 21 going, I can go bigger than 10x, I can go 20x, 50x, I can do whatever I want. And there's that slight arrogance there, and there's a mindset of being invincible, which is great in sales, and being fearless in sales is obviously important. But from a business perspective, What happens when you start to skew this ratio and you're shooting for whales that are out of that kind of size?
I think there's a couple things that happen. You wind up exceeding the capacity of your organization. Secondly, you put yourself in a position that you eventually you begin to stop believing because the sales cycle is so long, the bigger the company. I mean, if it's 50 times in the X, you're going to wind up in a much, much longer. And the third thing I would say is that your personal best, if you're running on the track, and you're at an 8 minute mile, and to say I want to run a 4 minute mile, that is very disappointing for a very, very long time. You go from 8 minutes down to 7.5 and 7. There's a progression of growth in your ability to perform, and you need to map out that growth to be successful along the way to that improvement. 5 times the average deal, and I said average, not best, is still a progression of success that rewards you as you improve.
Yeah, because I'm guessing if you do that a number of times, your average deal goes up, so the system's working behind the scenes anyway.
That's right. I mean, and I would only say that the first, well, all the way back to being 25, the first biggest deal that I ever closed was $100,000 deal. The biggest deal I helped a company close just this year was $1.5 billion. Now that's
Wow.
a progression, right? So that took time. And if I had foolishly expected to go to that size up front, there is no way that I could have been the leader of that team to help close that deal.
For sure, for sure. Okay, well, let's go through this in a logical and step-by-step basis as much as we can then. How does prospecting differ for closing, getting people on the sales cycle for these bigger deals? Is the prospecting the same, but you just are casting your nets wider, or is there a specific process to going after these larger companies? Because obviously they've got more decision makers potentially, they've got more staff involved with the finance side of things. Does that change the game completely for salespeople who are looking to step up to that next level?
Absolutely. Prospecting historically has been about relationship building and developing a personal chemistry between yourself and one or two people. And in doing so, those one or two people were probably at a lower level in the organization. They weren't at a senior level in the organization, and you moved up over time. And hopefully, in doing that move up over time, you would eventually get to the executive decision maker. Prospecting in this particular approach is to get to the senior decision maker quickly. And I say quickly, that may take 6 weeks, it may take 6 months, but you start at the decision maker at the executive sponsor level. And we talk about that executive sponsor, that's someone who can sign on the line that is dotted, someone who will be one of the people who sign on the contract, purchase order, or statement of work. There may be multiple people who are signing on that depending upon the size of the deal. So when you're prospecting with those people, they are not necessarily looking for a relationship. They are looking for a solution. And when you are walking into those conversations, they expect you to know what their problem is in their industry and in their company. I recently was working with a company who was doing national cleaning services. When I mean national cleaning services, they had 1,000 locations and they won a national contract to provide cleaning services on a national basis. The last thing that the person in the team were selling was cleanliness. The vice president of operations and facilities, the CFO, and the rest of the people that were involved in the buying group, their assumption was that you could clean. The problem that they had was slip falls, the amount of issues they had in insurance claims because slip and falls. They had another issue with regulation compliance to regulations and the amount of cost that was causing them throughout their facilities. So it wasn't necessarily cleanliness that was their issue. Most companies would come in and present about their cleanliness and all the things that they did around this. The real problem of an executive moves past the product or service you provide into the problem of the executive, and speaking in their language makes an enormous difference. That's what prospecting looks like. If you're talking down at a managerial level, at a facility level, what are they concerned about? How clean is my facility? And that may get you a small cleaning contract for one or two or even a region of cleaning locations. To get to the executive sponsor, you have to speak in their language.
This throws up, and I've experienced this before, which we can touch on some anecdotes later perhaps, but this throws up the first problem to all this that I see and I've experienced, in that people lower down the food chain most of the time. If you've got a bit of rapport building skill and you've got a product and a service that's recognized, you can get in front of them, you can get a 5-10 minute meeting or phone call, and then you can do your exploration work with them to find out what the problems and what the solutions you can offer them are. But when you are then dealing with, if you're skipping them and you're going to the executive level, it becomes extremely harder to then spend time with them because they're very busy people. They've got a lot on, and obviously they're the one that signed the checks. So they've got more and more people coming in that are being filtered out with PAs and secretaries. So it's harder to get hold of them directly. How do you find out what the problems are at an executive level so you can pitch them and engage them prior to having the ability to sit down with them, if that makes sense?
It does. And I think the issue is that we have to overcome is a mindset shift. One of those mindset shifts is this: the lower level people used to have authority and power in making smaller decisions to buy. They had a budget that they were able to use, they had influence in the organization. But about a decade ago, that was slowly taken away from them. They were no longer able to make larger purchases. They had to get everything signed off by their boss or their boss's boss or whatever. And that happened to do with a variety of pressures that I won't go in through. So, because of that, uh, it changed the way purchases were made. And so, the prospecting piece and getting to that higher level, you have to move through both of those particular pieces, even if you're going at the managerial level. I want to be clear about this. You don't have to have a thousand stores to be in the conversation of solving a bigger problem. You can be in one store or five stores, or you can be selling insurance or other kinds of products. For the things that you and I are discussing today are still as valid and relevant for someone who is selling to the senior person. Now, how you do it, and Will, I want to come back to the nature of your question, is research. The people that you're speaking to are not concerned with what you understand about your product and service. They only care about what you understand about their industry and their competitors and their marketplace. And so when you go in and instead of talking about your products, such as the cleaning that you use and the way you hire your cleaning people and the punch lists you use to make yourself effective and so on, when you do that, you're talking about yourself. When you go in and talk about slip and fall rates and compliance to regulations, you're talking about them and their industry. It's about research and prep work. If you're hunting bigger deals, the research and prep work is worth the amount of time that you're spending because the end result is a much bigger deal. And therefore, what you did in advance pays off in the ROI.
And is that always true? And this is, it's difficult to put a blanket sweeping statement over that. But for the 99% of salespeople in the B2B world, is it always, if you can pull it off, more efficient to go after a few smaller ones, a few bigger ones rather than lots of smaller ones? Because obviously it's industry dependent. There's lots of different contexts and ideas to that. But to make a sweeping statement, gun to head, yes or no, is it always better to go after the big ones?
I think you have to look at it as a portfolio of investment, right? Instead of a portfolio of investments of dollars in stocks, you have to look at it as a portfolio of investment of your time. So, in doing that, you're going to have investment of time into smaller deals that are going to pay off more quickly. And you may choose to invest 30% of your time in those smaller opportunities, or 40 or 10. And your mid-sized opportunities, you can pick a percentage, and then your larger deals, you pick a percentage. And you're investing your time in each of those sides because you have to eat today, you have to eat 6 months from now, and you have to eat a year from now. What I find is organizations and individual salespeople don't invest in the top rank. They only invest in the small, and they use that middle size as the hope that they're going to get a little bit of a payoff. And that keeps them from hunting those bigger deals that have the big payoff. So it's a portfolio.
Next step then, so you've done your research, you know who the decision makers are, you are confident that you can pitch them on something that's exciting and they're going to really take it on board and consider it. How do you get in touch with that C-suite executive? Because as I mentioned before, they're way more likely to have secretaries, PAs, people in front of them to filter cold calls. I assume are not going to work at this kind of level. Do you have to work your way up through the company, or is it getting referrals from other people? Is there a best practice to go about getting hold of them?
Well, there's a variety of best practices. A friend of mine, Ian Brody, I think, who I have had back and forth conversations when I was over there. He and I went to a pub and we had, pints and laughs, and we were discussing back and forth. He's been one of your guests before, and you have a
Yeah.
number of guests which I have relationships with. That Cathcart and a couple of other folks that are in there, and they're just the tops. They're the best of the best. And when I went through all the people that you've worked through, I don't know how you picked out. You've done a very good job of picking out some of those folks. But Ian and I were talking about that, and Ian, of course, is an email fan, and he doesn't like phone. I think and so that's why we were going back and forth. I think phone and email have an integrated approach. We use a phone system of making calls that does work and it is effective, but it doesn't work at all if you call up and so you say, "Hi, I'm Tom Searcy. I'm calling from XYZ Company, and we're the
Mm.
premier providers of the following services. We'd like to go ahead and have a minute to talk to you and your organization about the ways that we can solve your problems in these kinds of things. I'd love to be calling back tomorrow to set an appointment. Thank you so much." Click. Worst way to get an appointment ever. If you call up, and we have an entire system that we call Storm the Castle, but what it really says, and you can find some of that information free on my website. So this is just, I want to give that away. I want people to find that. But simply said, we start off the first call and we say, "Hello, this is Tom Searcy from XYZ Company. We call exclusively organizations like you and senior executives like president of those company to solve the following three problems. Those companies that are $100 million or more and have this problem, they are either trying to cut costs by at least 2% in this area of their business, they're trying to accelerate their delivery time by at least 3% in this area of the business, or they are trying to get a precision of accuracy in this kind of part of their business. I'll be calling you back tomorrow to set a time for a conversation." Now, you'll notice I didn't give them my phone number for them to call me back. I didn't give them their email to go ahead and reach out to me. And it's a 6-step process that inside of that, we wind up with a 40% callback, 40% connect. Now, on the back end, we wind up using email and we work that out. It's a longer discussion than we have time for today, Will. But in the end, the integration of phone and email works on senior executives. Now, it doesn't work all the time and it doesn't work every time. But when you're getting to senior executives and you've got that kind of a hit rate, that's
Mhm.
pretty good. So,
Well, the way you were speaking then, Tom, was that's what a consultant would say stereotypically versus what a salesperson who's got a product will say. So is that the big picture, the mindset shift that we're talking about here? In that they don't, as you said, they don't care about your product. They care about what you personally can facilitate, what change you can facilitate for them.
absolutely. Research came out, and this is United States research. So forgive me for if not applying to everybody who's listening to this right now. But it indicates that here in the US, there'll be a 22% decrease in business to business sales positions over the course of the next 5 years. The people that are going to lose their positions are going to be those people who are in the position of processing transactions. That's one category. Or those people that are demonstrating products and services. That's another category. Or those people that are handling the paperwork of we have RFPs or documents for evaluating. There's only
Mm.
one group who's going to increase in the size of their category of sales, and that group is called Guide Me. And that group of people is expected to grow because they're able to predict and assist their customer to a better future. And so you're right, it is a consultant's approach um, about that group of people to move forward to a different future. And all salespeople are selling fundamentally a better future, but it's not a better future of products and services. Again, I go to a better future for your customer. And to do that, you need to know what the current and the past is of the customer. That's why you dig down. That's why you can't sell everybody in your industry. You can't sell all companies who buy your products and services. You have to pick a couple of industries that you become very, very familiar with.
Okay, so next step in this process, well, it's not going to be the next step. There's going to be about 15 steps in between this and the prospecting side of things. But how does a sales pitch or a presentation change when you're at this level? Because the ones I've done in the past have been down two routes. One, I would just be in an office with a bunch of executives and I would just be talking, as we discussed, and consulting with them. And my background's medical device sales. So it was finding out, where they were being put under claimed issues, where there was unused theatre time that was adding up. And all I had to do then was prove that the cost of implementing my products and service, which would eliminate that wasted theatre time, would be less than the cost of the waste theatre time. So it becomes a no-brainer at that point.
Mhm.
The other side of things would be a very horrible, awkward corporate presentation where we'd be in tender processes, where you got allotted a time, you'd be in a room, no one would really be paying attention because they're very busy people. They've got other stuff that they need to be doing, and they don't have time to sit through 7 presentations without doing some emails in between. Is there a standard of getting your information in front of the C-suite and these executive decision makers, or does it depend on the industry?
It does depend upon the industry. You're absolutely right. But I think if you look at first appointment, which would be with the executive sponsor, and you're right, they're very, very busy. But the point would be you've gotten in there because you've demonstrated an understanding that you understand their business and you've given them thresholds. We're specialists in covering this ratio of problems. You've got a 3% problem, a 5% problem, some number that says we're specialists in moving the needle of this much or more. So they're going to eventually or directly ask you, how do you do that? And you're going to say, let's spend 30 minutes, an hour together. We'll discuss more of the data that you have, and then I'll tell
Mhm.
you if we can do that for you. I don't have your data, so we specialize in that, but you may not be the right kind of customer for us to be able to do that. Let's sit down. I'll ask some questions. I'll give you some clarity about what we've done, and let's determine whether we can work together or not. First meeting, you can walk in with a journal and nothing else. You sit down, you give your business card and say, I have a series of questions. Let's start off with help me to understand what you're working through. And you walk through your questions. They will go through that and say, well, based upon the answers that you've given me so far, I believe that we can provide some assistance in this. I'll need to speak with the following people, but I think we can move the needle for your organization within the range. Let me give you a couple of examples that we've done that for, and then here are the examples that we've done that for. And so let's set a meeting to really expand that. I'll need these people at that meeting, and I'll bring these people. And my goal is to get you a full answer within the next meeting or the meeting after that that will provide you a proposal telling you that we're going to answer that question and what it would cost to do that. It
Okay, and
expands
just
on
let me interrupt you there, Tom. You mentioned numbers and data. Is everyone, again, a sweeping statement, but are the majority of people at this level pretty analytical minded? So it's important to focus on the hard numbers and the facts rather than some of the more fluffy side of sales, which gets talked about on occasion.
Well, yes, it is important to focus on the numbers and the facts, but in part, Will, what you're doing is a technique called involuntary engagement. When I say a number to someone, I say, greater than 4% or, a period of time of, less than 6 months, immediately that person does the calculation. Do I have that problem or do I not? That doesn't mean that they're going to go back to some document or have to go ahead and go to their email,
Okay.
their Excel spreadsheet to figure that out. They know in their head, are we generally above or below that? And is that problem a problem for me? So they'll come to that in what we would call rough math. And because it's got to be one of the top five things that they're trying to solve. If it doesn't intrigue them because it's not one of the top five things they're trying to solve, then we won't wind up in their offices for that kind of a presentation. And so we wind up not spending any time with them because if it's not one of the top five things, then we will not get the kind of attention that we have out of an executive sponsor to buy something. You know,
So it's a massive buying signal if you've even got in the room anyway.
that's right. They've indicated over the phone in advance of you coming into the meeting that this is one of the or more of their top five problems. Otherwise, they never
Brilliant.
take the meeting.
Fantastic. Okay, so then we're going to skip forward a couple of steps now with the time constraints that we've got on the podcast. But how do you then close the deal? And what is the close for a big corporate deal like this where perhaps numerous people have to sign it off? Then it goes off to finance to be approved before it comes back, and then accounts will actually pay it. At what point do you say the deal is closed? Is it when the cash and your invoice is paid, the money's in your account? Or can you be comfortable when someone in the C suite, for example, says, yes, we're going to do business with you?
Well, the way that I say this, first of all, a handshake is a lovely thing, but it's not enough, right? So a verbal agreement's not enough for me. Here's what the way that I like to have a close go. And again, it's a general term, so you'll have to. Everyone has to modify it to themselves. But it goes like this: based upon what we talked about, and based upon the documents that we have here, and the positive responses, it seems that we have agreement that we want to move forward. Is that true? And if it's not, please tell me what is left on the table to discuss. Yes, it is true. That's great to hear. What are the steps in your organization you need to take to make this work forward? And what is the timing that needs to happen? I understand there's processes that you need to follow. Or can we take care of that today by signing a document? And then by signing that document, what steps will you need to take to make certain that that signed document initiates the processes? I put it on them. They're the ones who've signed that have agreed to this, and I need to know how they're going to move it forward. Then at that point, I say all of our agreements and the statements of work that we've got right now, for us to take work forward, require a deposit with the signed statement of work. The deposit just allows us to move forward inside of our organization and begin the work. It's in the contract or the statement of work or the purchase order, and we'll start work immediately upon receipt.
For sure. So this is brilliant in that you're finding out the steps of process because, and I've done this myself in the past. I've got that excited that they want to move forward, that they agree to everything, and then nothing happens for 2 weeks. And I start emailing them, and they go, "Well, you need to speak to Diane in finance." So you speak to Diane, and she goes, "Oh yeah, but it needs to be signed off by George in procurement." And then you find out that just because one executive wants it to happen, it will happen eventually. But then as soon as you leave their office, they're swarmed by other people and they've got a lot of other stuff gone. So they're not going to chase the business through for you. So once they outline the steps, I guess then you can ask permission to get in contact with all these people. You can line it all up and just make it flow a lot easier.
That's right. Absolutely right.
Okay, finally then, from that point, because these can take from again my experience dealing with the NHS and multi-million dollar contracts and deals that we were putting together. These can take from anywhere from a week for a procurement officer to sign it off if it was under about 150 grand. And then if it was above that, it would mean multiple signatures. Again, complicated further because it's public money and all that kind of good stuff, which is not what you want to hear as a salesperson when you're going through these and you've got commission coming out the other side for you. How do you keep in touch with the executives or the executive sponsors? I think is the terminology you've been using. How do you keep in touch with them so that you can, because you want to chase them and you want to say, hey, look, this hasn't moved. Can you do me a favor and push this forward? But obviously, that is a horrible email to send, as is the hi, I'm just checking in with you email. Is there a way to keep communication with them, keep that relationship going, even though you know on the backside of it and the back end that they don't, as you said before, they're not interested in the relationship, they're interested in the solution?
My experience is to say the following. All right. It is based upon our conversations. There is some urgency in getting this product, this service initiated. What we need is an executive to steward our relationship forward. I need the best level of contact person to work with us on a every Friday basis. So we'll schedule that with your team, the person who's assigned, and with you to make certain that we have. It's just a 15-minute contact so that we have progress. I need to have commitment, of course, because my experience is we can do all the commitments that we have right now, but this can go into kind of the morass of all executives. I'm sure that you've experienced the same thing. So who is my contact team and what's our person and who's the person who's above that person if they happen to go on holiday or be very, very busy? And then let's set the frequency. What's the best time of the day for us to set the frequency for that call? Great. All right. And then on my team, this is the person who will be calling you to set that up. And in addition, if you're having any challenges along the way, this will be the person that you'll be contacting. Of course, you can always elevate that to me if you need to.
Tom, I don't want to stroke your ego here too much, because
No,
you're
no,
a
go
confident
ahead.
guy anyway.
Go ahead.
But but do you know what? In speaking to you and hearing the language that you're using, the terminology is not what I would use personally. I'd have to learn all this if I was going to be going into the back into the corporate world and doing deals on this kind of level. It's it's very different between a lot of the people that we have on the show. And especially with sales backgrounds, could have done anywhere from 100,000 a year commissions to 250,000 a year commissions. What you're talking about, the money aspect aside, it's the difference between being a hustler and just working really hard and getting around and knowing your customers and having those relationships and that rapport and that bit of banter and looking after them. It's the difference between that a hustler and just a, I would call you a pro, someone who's just corporate, knows exactly what's going on, is very cool, calm, and collected. And I would trust you way more than that hustler kind of salesperson. And what I ask you from this is this only appropriate for the big top end sales, or is this kind of mindset and the way you're speaking and the language you're using, should people who are doing smaller sales, even if it's a big step up for them, perhaps from the conversation we've had, should they be taking that more corporate and professional approach as well and putting that spin on their selling?
I'd make 2 points, and thanks for the question. I think it comes down to 2 points. The first thing is you get sent to whom you sound like. So if the person that is going to be making the decision is going to be a president, a vice president, a senior executive, if you come in sounding like a hustler, they will immediately look to defer you to someone else or delegate you to someone else because they're going to say to themselves, why am I in the room with a hustler? Hustlers
Mm.
talk to managers, they don't talk to me. So if you want to figure out a way to be in with senior executives, change your language and style to sound like a senior executive. And I'm not saying formal. The people I'm talking to are not formal, but my language is quick and it is direct, and I feel like I'm supposed to be in the room. The second thing I would say is that these people are looking for outcomes. It's about that outcome approach. You know, what are we going to get done in this particular piece of time or this window of time? So if you start off with the idea of outcomes, this is what's going to be relevant to you, Mr. Buyer, then you get to stay in the room. It is, people find this very interesting. Over the course of my, I guess it would be almost 25 years of doing these things, I've rarely had dinner, almost never had dinner with a prospect. I don't play golf, all right? I don't take people hunting. I don't take them to sports events. And yet I've had the opportunity to close $1 million deals or more than $1 million deals with 190 of the Fortune 500 companies. Now people say, why is that? You've got to go out to dinner. You've got to play golf. That's absolutely important. No, CEOs and senior vice presidents and executives want you to solve problems. The rest of it is something for another time. And, you know, they buy to solve a problem. Of course, we like each other. We become friendly, and customers, yes. Prospects, no. And even then, it's probably, I don't know, over the course of that period of time, no more than 2 or 3 times a year do I wind up entertaining a customer out there.
Okay, well, Tom, let me ask you that then. For someone who wants to perhaps up their game, perhaps someone listening now works in auto sales. They're selling, perhaps they're selling even prestige cars, and I would count that as a great job, and there's plenty of money in it for sure, and you can be doing something you really love. But it's still more hustler's the wrong word to describe it because that has negative connotations. But it's still more that end of things. Perhaps they want to move into the corporate world, be doing big B2B deals with a team working around them. What is the best way for them to take that shift? Because it's language, it's your appearance, it's your levels of confidence that you're portraying. There's a whole lot of mindset and all this to it as well. How do they take that step up? Is it a case of spending more time with that C-suite level, whether you find a mentor or whether you find people you can be mates with that own businesses, for example, that can introduce you to these kind of people, or is there another way to go about it?
So there is a concept that was written about a long, long time ago, and that's a mastermind group. And so a mastermind group is simply anywhere between 8 and 12 people that come together to figure out ways in which they can help advance the lives of other people. So I have been part of mastermind groups since I was 22. When I was in mastermind groups, I always chose executives to be a part of those mastermind groups who were at least 2 levels above me, because I always wanted to do exactly what you described. I wanted to watch them and emulate them and etc. So when I would join those groups, I didn't join groups of people who were at my level. I joined groups of people that were 2 levels above me. I joined groups who made me uncomfortable, but I'd watch them, I'd listen with them, I'd talk with them, and they would ask me questions, and they would, do the kinds of things that mentors do, etc. And through that, I moved up over time to different mastermind groups, and because of that, I gained a different understanding of how senior executives and CEOs or whatever thought. And I've been doing that for 25 years, and now I'm, in a mastermind group where everyone in that mastermind group is the CEO of $1 billion company or half a billion dollar company, except me. And I'm still in that group, and I get to be a part of them, and I'm learning, and I continue to learn. So that would be my strongest example or way in which you can advance yourself in language, style, thinking, all of those other things.
Fantastic. Amazing advice. Absolutely brilliant. And with that, I've got one final question for you, Tom, that I ask everyone that comes on the show. And that is, if you could go back in time and speak to your younger self, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give him to help him become better at sales?
I would remember that everyone I am presenting to, talking to, connecting to is a person and is relaxed, and they have problems, and they have children, and they drink too much every once in a while, and they make decisions that they shouldn't have, and they're embarrassed, and etc. So if I could remember that, so that when I'm with them, I'm not too stuffy or too nervous or too scared that this person probably cuts their lawn and has parents they don't like or whatever it is. um, it makes me relax a little bit so that I can remember. I said you get sent to whom you sound like.
Mhm.
You also, if you realize that they're just like you, it makes it easier to be like they are.
Fantastic. And with that, Tom, I want you to tell us a little bit about all the masses of content that's available on huntbigsales.com and a little bit about the keynotes that you do as well.
I do a number of keynotes, and one of those things is how to speak with authority. Another one of those is how to land your biggest deal ever. Other things are those kinds of ways in which you can grow inside of your organization to be a process-driven salesperson. There's a number of other sales keynotes that I've given over time, getting prepared for the jump, because everybody who moves from where they are to the next level up has to take a pretty big jump to get there. And getting ready for that jump sometimes can be intimidating. Online, we've got everything inside of the sales process inside of that. And I've been fortunate enough to write 4 books about it, and you can look on Amazon and see those. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of keynote or videos and things like that online. So on our website at huntbigsales.com.
Great stuff. And for anyone who is on a treadmill or in the car at the moment, I will link to all everything that we talked about and some extra resources over in the salesman red show notes for this episode. And with that, Tom, I want to just thank you for your time today. We went down some different routes than I was expecting, which is awesome. And so I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for joining us on the Salesman Podcast.
My pleasure. Enjoyed the conversation a great deal.
And there we have it. I just want to thank Tom for coming on the show today. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, I enjoy having these conversations and being able to share them with you. I will speak with you again tomorrow.